welcome to our weekend release. This is our bonus podcast episode where we see how much extra content we can squeeze into your week. Usually it's filled with random things that have been sent in and how our advice went down with our G and Divas.
Now, on Tuesday's episode, you'll remember that we toasted Jump Cut Jack and Sophie, who's now Sophie Jump Cut. They got married over the weekend. Producer Ben and merchandise Matt as well were there. And we thought we would dive into our archives to find the original email from however many years ago that Jack sent in to us. Because remember, as we said, they bonded about our podcast on their first date.
Yes, so Jack edits this podcast when we record
He now edits this podcast.
Chops it all together and everything and makes it sound as lovely as it is. And he's marrying Sophie.
He's married.
Oh, he's married Sophie, who's also a producer at Radio 1 who works on my drive time show that I do with Vic. So it's all lovely and they're great people.
And this is I can remember actually doing this letter however many years ago. Jack wrote in to us following his first date with Sophie, his now wife. This is the email he wrote. Dear William and Jordan, I've just finished listening to the latest episode of Help I Sexted My Boss, and I'm sure you can imagine my surprise at receiving a shout-out about my date with Jordan's, no apostrophe, work colleague Sophie, and the possibility of me now having awful tattoos if we didn't make it to another date. I hope you'll both be pleased to hear that we have, in fact, been on a few more dates, and that coming across as a complete fanboy for your show didn't put her off.
Aww.
As I approached the next date, I thought it would only be right to ask you both for advice and reduce the risk of any faux pas. The next date planned involves me going to her place and cooking her dinner. I'm fairly confident in my cooking ability, however I'm slightly nervous at the idea of cooking in someone else's home. Cooking at my place isn't an option on this occasion, as her place is much closer for an after-work meet-up. So my question is this: when cooking dinner for someone in their own home, are there any etiquette tips or things to be aware of so not to upset or offend the host? Also, Jordan, if you've got any insider knowledge on Sophie to help me out, every little helps, wink. Yours respectfully, Jack with the tattoos.
Because we used to know him as Jack with the tats. Didn't
What,
we?
at work? Or,
yeah, that's what we called him.
Yeah.
And then we gave him advice.
And clearly
now
it worked.
They're getting married.
Yes.
Yes.
If they have children, they have to call them William and Jordan.
Exactly. I know what they had for dessert.
William if it's a boy, Jordan if it's a girl.
Yeah, obviously. I know what they had for dessert that night.
I bet you did. I think we all do. Yeah.
Look at that. And our advice is so good. They're now married.
How fun. I like that. Our first sexted wedding. Ben?
Yes. Well, no, we had yours.
Oh, yeah, true. Our second sexted wedding.
Sophie, in her speech, called Jack Jump Cut Jack.
Oh.
And in their speech, Sophie called him Jump Cut Jack.
That's nice. Did people look confused in the audience? Yes. Nice. That's lovely. Well, clearly they don't need any intimacy between them because they're married, and that's all lovely, and they've achieved that. But talking of intimacy, Jordan, you may remember that last year I was working on the film Red, White and Royal Blue.
Yes.
Yes, well, we've got a special guest joining us today, another member of the film crew, Robbie Taylor Hunt. Well, hello, Robbie.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you and Robbie worked together on Red, White and Blue.
Good start. Red, White and Royal Blue.
Red, White and Royal Blue.
Yes.
And this is a very popular book and they've made it into a film.
Correct, yeah. So big hit sensation, young adult fiction that came out a couple of years ago. Can't remember exactly. And yeah, they've adapted it into this film.
And you, William, were the etiquette advisor on it.
Yes.
Is that the correct term?
I think that's how I'm credited, yes.
Consultant.
I'll find out. Robbie has seen a version of the film. I have not seen anything, but tonight I'm going to a screening.
Oh, right. And Robbie was the intimacy coordinator.
Correct, yes.
So many questions. So many.
I can remember at points on the set when we were together and people would come over and go, oh, and what do you both do? I go, well, one of us is the etiquette coach, and the other one is the intimacy coordinator. You can guess which is which.
Exactly. It was a fun little game to break the ice of
Yes,
people not really knowing what either of our jobs were.
No.
Or being surprised that we were there.
I still don't know what my job was.
No, sometimes exactly. I think the same.
How outright, first of all, I bet you get asked this all the time.
Fine.
How did you get into that? Do you have to be good at intimacy to start?
Not just in my real life, I was like headhunted.
Yeah, oh.
No.
So like, he's really good in bed, so he knows he'll be good at
making this a job. Yeah. No, I was slightly less exciting than that. I was working in theatre. I still work in theatre as a director, working with actors. I had some like movement training and like fight direction stuff. So that was sort of movement and safety hat. And then I was working for a company called Beyond Equality, who sort of train you up, and you go and do workshops in schools with boys and young men about like consent and gender-based violence. So that was sort of consent hat. So then when the training arrived, I was like, oh, this feels like a good little marrying of interests and skills of mine. And then you do a training program for like a year that I was on, like with like weekends spread through the year, which is this bizarre time when you're all in rooms talking about consent and communication and simulating sexual positions and all that.
It's what I've read about it as well, that a lot of actors have said, I wish it was around 20 years ago and stuff, don't they? A lot of actors love that there's intimacy coaches now on sets.
It's pretty bonkers because, I mean, the first kind of officially credited intimacy coordinator was 2017 in the US, and then in the UK it was 2018. And then if you think of like COVID taking out a chunk of that time, it's like really only been couple of years that it's been around. So people are like, oh, Game of Thrones, that must have been. And I was like, no, original Game of Thrones didn't. The prequel series has had intimacy coordinators, but no, like all the big classic sex scenes and nudity moments, nothing.
The first time I heard of one was Normal People.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it became apparent, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was their Sex Education was the first kind of big one. But yeah, and Bridgerton was a good early one as well. Yeah. So that was the kind of first little generation of shows with intimacy. I'd like to think then we're seeing intimate stories that are more interesting and
are you noticing more inquirers or for your time?
Totally, yeah. So I started more properly in 2019 into 2020, and then you know there was things.
Good time.
Really good moment to begin in any industry.
Yes.
So there was work starting to come up. There was this little thing, and people going, okay, yeah, great, come involved. And now it's much more normal. At first, I was working with people nearly exclusively who'd never worked with an intimacy coordinator, whereas now I'll come in and they'll be like, yeah, I've done this before. And that's beginning to happen a bit more. But still, there's those people who are like, I've done loads of intimacy without an intimacy coordinator and feel they have a little sense of like hesitancy and nerves around it. And then you're like, this is going to be different now. Like, this is why I'm here. And they afterwards are like, why did this happen? 20 years ago. Yeah.
So what would you do on set then? You'd get both the actors who are doing a sex scene.
Or indeed, several actors.
Exactly.
It doesn't just have to be
With
two.
20 supporting artists a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Tell me that film. I'll definitely watch it.
So I will say that before we even get to set, like loads happens before we even turn up, because really, if I've done my job properly, you've had all the chats before you're there, right? So there's like no surprises, right? It's not nice for someone to rock up and then it go like, oh, the director actually wants a higher level of nudity than we thought they were going to, right? So we have loads of those chats before. We look at the script, we talk about what it is and what it's not, speak to the actors so they can say, yeah, most of that's fine, but I just really don't want to do this, or I really don't want to show this bit of my body, and I can go, cool, and like privately we'll make sure that doesn't happen. Sometimes they want that to be kind of confidential. So then when we turn up, hopefully everyone's like, we know what's going to happen. And so everyone's kind of on the same page. But then, I'm there for simulated sex scenes to choreograph that and make it look realistic, as well as making sure they're sort of working within their boundaries and that they're comfortable. So sort of two hats to it. There's the like safety, looking after people, consent, boundaries, well-being side of it. And then there's the, let's make this a good scene that looks cool and that people are going to get something out of. And it's not sort of just pointless sex scene on camera, right? It's like making it dramatically exciting, and the actors are proud of it, directors pleased with how it represents the show.
Do you find, obviously you probably work with actors from all different nationalities, do you find certain nationalities are better at it? And maybe the line I'm going down here, let's rip the last off, is, are the Brits a bit weird about it compared to, let's say, the Europeans?
It's funny, yeah. So I mean, very early, actually, one of my first jobs was I went and covered someone for a day in France, and that was like, I needed a whole different training for working in France. It was just so different. And they, I think, saw this like English boy turn up with an English accent going, let's talk about the sex scene. And they were like, there was a sense of like, we're French, you know. But that was just that experience. And certainly the French acting community need and do have intimacy coordinators. There are French intimacy coordinators now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely you need to like have those cultural considerations.
Yes.
And Brits. So far, if I had to generalize working with Brits, it's obviously all sorts. But there is, I think, because people are a bit like, about it, there is a real sense of like, great, then let's make this very professional. So it sort of works very well for intimacy coordination, because people would kind of rather it had some structure to it. Sometimes people are like, oh, I just don't want to even like bother thinking about it or talking about it, and they can see me as a bit of like a person coming in to make a bigger deal of it, which isn't my MO. But yeah, generally appreciated within the British community.
And talking of the culture clash or different cultures, going back to Red, White and Royal Blue, that's one of the big sort of plot points is you have Britain and America.
Yeah.
Shall we just talk about the plot of Red, White and Royal Blue for those that are not aware of it?
Why don't we?
Yes.
Together, you can help me.
Fine.
So Henry is a fictional prince of England, of the Britain, and Alex Claremont Diaz is a fictional first son of the US president.
Oh.
So their sort of follows their rivalry, and their rivalry leads to at the brothers' wedding.
Yes.
Is that in the book as well? I'm trying to remember.
I think so.
In the film, the brothers' wedding, knock over a cake and it lands on them, the like wedding cake, and it becomes this huge like international press
Diplomatic
disaster.
incident.
Diplomatic incident. Thank you so much. So then, the Americans and the presidency and the palace decide that to like smooth things over to not make this an issue, they're gonna make the two boys seem like they're best of friends. And this was because they were great friends. They were just a bit of rough and tumble. It's not a big deal.
So it was an actual fight.
Yes.
Yeah, and they actually
okay.
didn't. They actually hate each other supposedly, and so then as they begin to have to hang out with each other and have to pretend that they're friends, blossoming romance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And in between all of that, obviously the blossoming is beautifully coordinated.
Oh, thank you so much.
And the tables are beautifully set.
Oh, okay.
Thanks
Tea
to
is
William.
drunk.
Although
exactly
I do
as it
think
should be.
my breakfast set, which I was most proud of, the breakfast table, is gone.
Is
on the
it?
cutting room floor. So,
Wow. Yeah.
alas.
Brutal.
The
Yeah, I mean-
arguments I had over square toast.
Why do they not have square toast?
No, they should have square toast with the crust cut off. That's the sophisticated way to have toast in private houses. And they did toast like you'd get at a Premier Inn, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but
Why
we're trying
didn't
to
they cut
recreate
it
the royal
off?
household. Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
Why didn't they cut it? If I was a director, I'd be like, I'd want it proper.
Well, they did listen to me in the end. It was
Yeah.
fine, but we took a while to get there, and then you think, I'm talking about toast here.
I'm shocked that cutting off the crusts is the fancy way to do it. To me, that I'd be like a bit embarrassed to cut off my crust. Like,
But it's
seems
cut off
infantile.
in the kitchen.
Your podcast
I
together
see.
could be Tits and Toast.
You get yourself off.
I know. There you go. You could have another spin-off podcast.
Tits and toast.
Is there a lot of
Good.
intimacy in the film? It's a
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
the book is famously quite raunchy and has like lots of intimacy in it. So that exists in the film as well. So from little touches and little brief moments to sex scenes. Yes.
wow.
Spoilers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Be nice. Yeah. Okay, and obviously with actors, whether it's male, female, or whichever gender that you are working with, you are obviously they may not like each other at all. They may hate each other as
Oh, yeah.
actors, but obviously we have to force that in effect for
we're
the
used
sake of art. Where do you even start? Let's assume Jordan and I hated each other.
Okay, just assumption.
Yeah, just an assumption.
Okay.
But we've got to pretend that we not just like each other, we love each other.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's a very good question because as intimacy coordinators, we're all about there being like a personal, professional boundary. So even if you're real world spouses and even if you absolutely hate each other, if you've never met, if you're best mates, like you should be able to choreograph a scene together. You're at work and you should be able to do that. That's like our whole MO. So we have a few things like help us kind of step into that and step away from it if needed. So it's like if you like loathed each other, can I give you a little something to try?
Yes.
No, you're not going to have to touch each other or kiss or anything. I
Okay.
promise.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, we've done all of that, so it's well, we have. We kissed on stage.
Oh yeah, we did kiss on stage.
When we got married.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
long
I'm
story.
sorry
It
I
was a
missed
tour
it.
we did a while ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do something like we can't really do because there's a table in the way.
We can
but
move.
to get we can do a sense of it here.
Okay.
Is you'd have eye contact. In a moment, you'll have eye contact.
Oh, in a moment. Okay.
In a moment, let me explain so you're not stuck in eye contact. You'll have a breath in through your nose and breath out through your mouth, and then you do like a high 10, and that's a little
What's a
way.
high 10?
Like, right.
Oh, like a high. Oh, a high.
High five,
Two high
but with
fives.
exact correct.
Oh, I didn't
yes.
know.
High 10,
High
okay.
10.
So that's a little way that we can be like, you're like hate each other, you're squabbling, and then I'm like, okay, we need to work now. Like, let's get into it a bit, right?
Okay.
So that would be a little. Should we just do the breath? You could mime
Yeah.
the high 10. You can reach each other. So
No, we
eye
can do that.
Okay, eye contact. Breath in through your nose. out through your mouth, and high 10 if you can manage it. Great.
Jordan!
I'm ready now.
For podcast... So many questions answered. For podcast listeners, Jordan has just...
That's really worked.
I did it.
I was ready.
For the trade.
I was ready for the taking.
Jordan! Robbie, I'm so sorry.
It's fine. I've seen it all.
Robbie,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
There you go. Look what I
I'm
did.
going to try that next week.
Yeah.
We'll just describe what happened for those that are listening and not watching any of this on whatever video platform. Jordan just stood on his chair and turned around and presented.
That is the technical term.
Yes, and then did other various positions.
Right. So that,
Anyway,
that
so right,
steps
we've
you
started.
into it.
And I feel actually that laugh, it's just eased some tension.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think people think that I'm going to turn up and be very serious and be like, why are you laughing? This is incredibly serious. Whereas I'm like, it is strange to have to turn up at work and like kiss your colleague, basically. So that is a weird thing. And I'm all about allowing that tension and laughter and whatever feels helpful for people.
Okay.
But then, yeah, like people often be like, oh, we want chemistry, but we need chemistry, right? And it's like, sure, if there's chemistry, great, but like you can't always like mine these depths of chemistry to like force it to come out. So we'll have sort of tricks that you can sort of, again, it's like choreography and decisions as actors that try and like cheat and create some chemistry. So typically that is, if you also want to do, again, it'll just be eye contact as we discussed. So we're looking at each other, notice your breath. And if you make your breath really like shallow, like you're only just exactly at open mouth, just a little bit of breath coming out of your lips. And keep that eye contact. And now just like study that person's face. So like trace your eyes around, not just their eyes, but their eyebrows and nose and mouth and ears. And look around.
The hairy nostrils.
Hairy nostrils. Taking it all in and let that breath get shallower.
Is your ass twitching?
And then let your ass twitch. So anyone viewing, I'm sure will notice this electric energy between the two of you.
That actually does work.
Yeah, this is just there's beginnings of, we'd have long rehearsal, etc. to build it all up. But that's just like, you look around someone's face and change your breath, and there is like a little something that shifts in the space between them. So that's like such a little boring trick of the trade.
Eases the tension a bit,
Exactly.
it?
And then you can step up from that.
Because I do a lot of, in my proper job, and did a lot of eye contact training for like customer service.
Very
skills.
interesting.
But that's just the eyes. Whereas we would always say looking at the mouth, for example, is not professional in terms of customer service. You know, someone's serving you your scrambled eggs. You don't want to be looked. They don't need to look at your mouth. But actually looking at the mouth in a dating or in a acting sphere when you're being intimate is good.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that's like something I do with actors if we're kind of trying to cheat that chemistry or like step up, begin to build something with two people working together. But yeah, I mean, people's real lives, eye contact, showing that connection. And also, like, I mean, it might feel a bit forced, but like noticing your breath and all that, I think, can be really helpful for you as well. Like if you're nervous and there's a bit of spark between you, being like grounding yourself with your breath and being able to connect with that person, I think is.
And actually probably not having a table in between.
I guess, particularly
It's a
so
barrier.
large if you're trying to.
Sorry,
got one
at
more-
the table.
Have you got one more trick of the trade for us? Is there another exercise?
We can move if you need us, if the table is prohibiting.
It's just
We
about
can use the
easing
table.
tension, isn't it?
We can
Relax
use the
it.
table.
Ben, go and get the loop.
Oh my goodness. What else can I give you? Well, you can do a little body map, which is a way of like how if you're working together and you're going to
body
have to
map.
touch, of being like, this is where I want touch, this is where I don't like touch, right?
Okay.
So say that, let's just talk above the waist, shall we?
Yeah.
So like if I was talking through mine, I'd say like, oh, I'm fine with touching my head, trying to touch on my face.
Yes,
Fine with
because
touching my
various
shoulders.
people I know who will remain nameless hate face touching.
Exactly. And some people will be like, face fine, nowhere near my lips, or like hate my ears being touched or something, right?
Okay.
Because very often you'll work with people who
That's so good. You
their-
would never think
yeah.
that.
And sometimes it's just someone going, all I'm worried about this scene is that someone's going to touch my stomach. Like, or so they have one thing that they just really don't want to happen that would just be improvised and that would really ruin the scene for them. So it's just a chance to be like, this is where I'm at, sort of thing.
I wouldn't like you to touch my hair because obviously if I'm on set, it'd be in place, and I'm like quite picky with my hair, so I wouldn't want you to run your hands through my hair. But I'm more than happy with your forefinger and thumb for you to rub my nipple. I quite like that.
That's actually a preference, not even like a boundary.
If you just lick it first beforehand,
Okay.
just give it a little rub. That's.
So we'll put a line that has to be pre-licked. If we're
Okay.
going to do any.
Quite like that. Just like as if you're tuning a radio.
Everything's radio.
Yeah. And this is
That
such
does it for me. I'm more than happy, but don't touch the hair.
Fiddle with my DAB.
And you?
Shoulder?
You don't want me to touch your
No,
shoulder?
you can. You can touch my shoulder.
Okay.
You can touch my neck.
My back. Lick my...
You can
We
touch
won't
my
do that.
arm.
Those next bits of the song.
Yes.
I can touch your arm.
Yes.
What about your sides? If I just tickle?
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't really mind.
Okay.
Well, it's a good point about tickle, right? Because some people are like, like firm
no,
touch,
don't
fine,
yes,
like
firm
working
touch.
You
but
don't want
like-
tickling.
No.
See, this is genuinely.
helpful,
This is.
isn't
I know
it?
we're having a laugh and stuff, but this is. Yeah, you would be. You'd want to know all this if you were. Yeah.
Because someone's super ticklish and they're like, I just won't be able to act if I start to get a bit
Yes.
tickled. Or if like someone starts improvising, running through my hair, I'm just gonna like stop acting and being like, they're touching my hair.
Do you
they're
have
running
any
my hair.
tricks? This is maybe not really intimacy. This is more psychology, I guess. But do you have any tricks for those that are? Because I can't. I once went for a pedicure. And I kicked the woman in the face because because I'm so ticklish. My husband now said to me, "I'm not marrying you unless you go for a pedicure." So I went for a pedicure like 2 weeks before our wedding, and I kicked the woman in the face from the moment she touched my foot.
I did first imagine manicure, so I was like, how did you end up kicking her in the face? But pedicure makes more
foot.
sense.
No, my
yeah.
feet were exposed, and it was like boom.
Okay, reflex. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, ticklish, we just avoid the areas that are going to tickle people, like for starters. But yeah, talk about the kind of quality of what that touch is, right? Because if it's like light, that's ticklish. Because if you're like, can you please just have quite a firm grab on my foot? That would not be so ticklish.
Okay.
It's all about communicate, just talking
I'm going to
about
do
it,
that,
you know?
when I go back for my
Thank
next
you.
Communication.
Communication's key.
Has anyone ever got a boner on set?
I would hate to disclose the exact blood flow
must
situations. It does happen.
The
yeah.
blood
it?
flow situation. I love
of the
that.
actors I work with. So, I mean, physiological responses, your body is in positions of sex, you have physical contact, there's kissing. Like, it's very normal that our body goes, oh, this is what's happening, and that there can be those physiological responses. I think it's less common than people think. I think people tend to worry about it more. But, I mean, the headline is that you can pause any time when we're shooting intimacy, right? So I'm there if someone's like, I need a break, I don't ask why, we just have a break, right?
Oh,
So that's like part of it. You know, and same with
great.
like where you want to be touched, you don't owe me why, you can just be like, I don't want this to happen. I'm like, cool, right? So if someone's like, can I just have 5 minutes? I'm like, sure. That could be for any reason, but maybe it's because they have an erection. But the other thing is, if we're simulating sex, that they're going to be in a modesty garment. So a modesty garment is anything which is like implying a level of nudity that's not actually happening.
Just going to model that for us.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. He's modeling our latest
on.
collection.
So modesty, it's just a thong, is it?
Can be thong, can be
Skin-
like
skin
adhesive,
colour,
skin
yes, or-
tone. Yeah, they can be sort of stick on, so like stick to like just your lower abdomen, like wrap around, and then stick to your tailbone. If we wanted to see exposed sides, for example. But they also have like barriers that we can put in. So there's little like silicone barriers that go inside, so that you just an extra layer of protection, can't see the kind of shape of your genitals. B, when you're simulating sex, you have that extra barrier between the two people. But also, it means that if there is some physiological response, you can't really tell in the first instance because there's like a barrier in the way. So you don't even need to pause. You can just be like, slight reaction now, just give it a minute and crack on.
Were they naked in your film that you did together?
There is nudity, but most films, I guess it's a closed set when you do the sex scene. So I was not involved anyway on those days, but you have very limited people on the set.
Yes, exactly. So you have only absolutely essential crew in, and you like robe. You're there in robes until you're just about to shoot them. They disrobe and then they shoot, and then just one cut, they robe up again. So it's all very protected. But yeah, we have implied.
I did a different type of forks.
Robbie, thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely.
This has been
Thank you for
marvellous.
having me.
It's been great. It's actually, I know we've like had a laugh in that, but it's actually really insightful, isn't it?
Before you go, if there's anything from your professional life that you could give to people, because some people do struggle to be intimate for whatever reason with their partners or people they're dating, do you have any particular tip or advice to give them to help, obviously in a real way, to help force some intimacy in a good way
Yeah, so
with consent.
while I am, intimacy professional, I'm not a intimacy coach IRL. I mean, the main thing that I always think the biggest overlap is around consent, being really really checking in with yourself and knowing what you do want or like as much as possible. Sometimes you don't know, and being able to communicate that with your partner and having a real fluency with consent and really talking about that properly. Knowing that it is a win for everyone if you can talk about it and get them to be these are the things I really want to happen right now, and these are the things I really don't want to happen. Just everyone's going to end up better for that. So even though as we began to do it there, things can feel a bit oh, this is a bit weird. As soon as you do it, it's quite nice, right? You feel heard and seen, and it just means that everyone's going to have a better time if you know the framework within which you're working or playing.
Yeah.
So that's my main thing.
I like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Robbie Taylor Hunt, thank you very much.
Remember, if you've got a question or story that isn't a dilemma or a problem, this is the place where we can read it out. So drop into our DMs on social media or send us an email to help@sexandmyboss.com with anything that you want to share with us. We also love hearing back from the people we offer advice to. So if that's you, do get back in touch with producer Ben. For Sex Ed news and nonsense, sign up for Ben's newsletter via sexandmyboss.com.
See you on Tuesday.